The Star Wars prequels promised us the rise and fall of Anakin Skywalker. The chosen one destined to bring balance to the Force turned into the monster Darth Vader. That was the headline. That was the tragedy we were told we would see. But what if that was never really the story at all? Because when you look closer, the prequels are not about Anakin losing himself. They are about Palpatine winning everything. From the shadows of the Senate, he manipulates crises, manufactures wars, and turns heroes into pawns. While Anakin is struggling with nightmares and forbidden love, Palpatine is calmly taking over the galaxy. He is not a side character. He is the real main character. Think about it. In The Phantom Menace, he becomes Chancellor. In Attack of the Clones, he gains emergency powers. In Revenge of the Sith, he wipes out the Jedi and crowns himself Emperor. That is not background noise. That is the central arc of the trilogy. Palpatine is the one who changes the galaxy. Anakin just changes outfits. Even the most famous scenes make more sense through this lens. Duel of the Fates is not about Qui-Gon or Obi-Wan. It is about Palpatine clearing the chessboard. Order 66 is not about clones turning evil. It is about Palpatine springing a trap he set years before. The tragedy of Padme is not about Anakin's weakness. It is about Palpatine exploiting it at exactly the right moment. And yet most fans still talk about the prequels as if they belong to Anakin. They miss the bigger picture. They miss the genius of a story where the true protagonist is the villain hiding in plain sight. That is why the prequels feel different from the rest of Star Wars. They are not just tragedies. They are triumphs disguised as tragedies. In this video, we are going to break down why the prequels were never really Anakin's story, but Palpatine's how his manipulation makes him the saga's true central figure, and how Star Wars quietly hid its darkest genius right in front of us. The Chosen One prophecy, the pod racer turned Jedi Knight, the husband, the father, the fallen hero. And yes, on the surface, that is what we are watching. But if you peel back the layers, the prequels are telling a very different story. The true central figure is not Anakin, but Palpatine. The rise of Darth Sidious is the through line that gives the trilogy its shape. Take The Phantom Menace. Everyone remembers the pod race and the duel of the fates, but the real victory belongs to Palpatine. He manipulates the Naboo crisis to position himself as Chancellor. He engineers a war without firing a shot and convinces the Senate to hand him power legally. Anakin may be freed from slavery in this film, but Palpatine is the one who wins a throne. From the very beginning, the story belongs to him. By the time of Attack of the Clones, his plan is already accelerating. The Jedi believe they have uncovered a conspiracy with Count Dooku, but in reality, both sides of the war are controlled by Palpatine. He funds the Separatists and secretly commands the Republic. He commissions the clone army and then convinces the Jedi to use it. Everything the Republic does plays into his hands. Anakin may be struggling with forbidden love, but Palpatine is building an empire, one Senate vote at a time. Even the Clone Wars themselves are not Anakin's story. They are Palpatine's war. Anakin may be the poster child of the conflict, but every battle, every tragedy, every casualty is part of Palpatine's design. He creates a problem and then sells himself as the solution. And the Jedi are too blind to see it. That is not Anakin's failure. That is Palpatine's triumph. This framing becomes even clearer in Revenge of the Sith. Anakin's arc is tragic, but it is Palpatine who controls every beat of it. The kidnapping of the Chancellor, the War Council that divides the Jedi, the manipulation of Anakin's fear of loss. None of these are accidents. They are moves on a chessboard where Anakin is the pawn, not the player. The tragedy is not just Anakin's fall, but the fact that the galaxy is playing Palpatine's game without realizing it. Think about how much screen time is dedicated to Palpatine in Revenge of the Sith. His conversations with Anakin, his manipulation of the Senate, his duel with Yoda. These are not side plots. They are the spine of the movie. Without Palpatine, there is no story. Anakin's journey is only meaningful because Palpatine has engineered it. Even the Jedi Council acknowledges this without realizing it. They speak of a growing darkness clouding their vision. That darkness is not Anakin's emotions. It is Palpatine himself. He is the phantom menace of the first film, and by the end of the third, he is Emperor. That is a full character arc. And unlike Anakin's, it ends in absolute victory. The real brilliance of this structure is how subtle it is. Lucas makes us believe we are watching the tragedy of Anakin while quietly weaving the triumph of Palpatine beneath it. That sleight of hand is why people are still debating the prequels decades later. They are not just about one man's fall, they are about another man's rise. What makes Palpatine's rise so effective is how invisible it feels in the moment. He is not swinging a lightsaber in every scene. He is sitting in a chair, whispering ideas, planting doubts, pushing people exactly where he needs them to go. That is the genius of his story. It is not about power gained through brute force, but through manipulation. Take his relationship with Anakin. On paper, this is the story of a mentor corrupting a student. But Palpatine plays the long game with terrifying patience. He befriends Anakin as a child, tells him he will watch his career with great interest, and then spends the next decade becoming his confidant. By the time the Jedi finally sense something is wrong, it is already too late. Palpatine has become the father figure Anakin never had. This slow corruption is what makes the prequels Palpatine's story. Anakin's choices are tragic, but they are framed within the context Palpatine has carefully designed. The nightmares of Padmé's death, the frustration with the Jedi Council, the temptation of power. These are not random events. They are the traps Palpatine has set. He builds the cage and then convinces Anakin to lock himself inside. Even the Senate becomes part of this manipulation. Palpatine uses every crisis to consolidate power. Emergency powers after Naboo. Military creation acts after Geonosis. Declaring himself Emperor after Order 66. At each step, the Senate cheers him on. They are not bystanders. They are collaborators. And this shows that Palpatine's rise is not just personal, but systemic. He exposes the weakness of democracy itself. This is why the prequels resonate differently when viewed as his saga. They are not simply the fall of a Jedi. They are the collapse of an entire galaxy engineered by one man. Palpatine is not just manipulating Anakin, he is manipulating everyone. The Jedi, the Senate, the clones, the separatists. He turns every faction into his tool. Notice how other characters in the prequels feel stagnant compared to Palpatine. Obi-Wan spends 3 films wrestling with loyalty and training. Yoda delivers wisdom, but fails to act until it is too late. Padmé shifts from warrior queen to sideline senator. Anakin spirals, but never truly grows beyond his fears. Palpatine, on the other hand, evolves in every film. He starts as a senator, then becomes chancellor, then emperor. He alone moves forward with purpose. This is also what makes him scarier than any other villain in Star Wars. Vader is powerful but obvious. Dooku is cunning but temporary. Palpatine is subtle. He hides in plain sight and wins without anyone realizing they have already lost. That is the real horror of the prequels. And when you look at them through this lens, you realize something else. Anakin's fall is not the story, but the byproduct. The real story is Palpatine creating Darth Vader because he needs him, not because destiny demands it. That twist reframes the entire trilogy, which is why when we say the prequels belong to Palpatine, we are not exaggerating. They are his masterpiece. The final way to see the prequels as Palpatine's story is to look at how they connect to the larger saga. When we transition into the original trilogy, Palpatine is already Emperor. Vader already serves him. The rebellion already exists. Everything that defines the galaxy of the originals is set in motion by the events of the prequels, and those events are Palpatine's victories. Order 66, for example, is often framed as Anakin's darkest moment because he marches on the Jedi Temple. But the Order itself is Palpatine's stroke of genius. Years earlier, he ensured every clone carried an inhibitor chip that would turn them into assassins on command. This was not Anakin's betrayal. This was Palpatine's insurance policy. He eradicated the Jedi with one command and cemented his control of the galaxy. The Empire itself is also Palpatine's true legacy. Anakin may be the face of its terror, but Palpatine is its architect. The fleets, the bureaucracy, the fear, These were not accidents. They were designed to ensure absolute power for one man. And in that sense, the prequels are less about how Anakin becomes Darth Vader and more about how Palpatine builds the Empire brick by brick. Even thematically, the prequels fit Palpatine better than they fit Anakin. Anakin's arc is about fear and loss, but it feels rushed, especially in Revenge of the Sith. Palpatine's arc is about corruption, manipulation, and control, and it stretches across all three films perfectly. He has a beginning, middle, and end. He starts in the shadows, rises in the Senate, and ends on the throne. That is classic storytelling structure. The brilliance of this lies in how Lucas hides it. He makes us believe we are watching Anakin, but the whole time Palpatine is the one pulling focus. Think about the opera scene where Palpatine tells Anakin the tragedy of Darth Plagueis. That moment is not just a plot device. It is the core of the trilogy. It is Palpatine revealing himself without ever breaking his mask. That scene alone tells us whose story this really is. When you watch the original trilogy after the prequels, you see the results of his victory. Vader is broken. The galaxy is enslaved. The Jedi are extinct. Palpatine won, and he won by playing the longest con in cinematic history. That is why the prequels make more sense when reframed as his saga. They are not about a fall, they are about a rise. And this is why the prequels are so polarizing. Viewers who look for Anakin's story feel frustrated because his arc feels incomplete. But viewers who pay attention to Palpatine see a masterclass in villainy. That difference explains why the films feel uneven, yet unforgettable. They are hiding a story in plain sight and most people miss it. So in the end, the prequels are not just a tragedy for Anakin. They are a triumph for Palpatine. And that is what makes them both infuriating and brilliant. The prequels were never Anakin's story. They were Palpatine's.
Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that share button. My main channel is Critical Analysis Hub, where I post Star Wars content about the movies. My secondary channel is Critical Analysis Hub Plus, where I focus on the shows of Star Wars. And my third channel is Critical Analysis Hub XP, where I post comic books. Be sure to take a moment and check them out. Thanks, and may the Force be with you.